we gotta talk about the, I don't know if I want to say beef, but the inciting beef, I'll call it, between Joe Budden and Drizzy Drake. So last week, actually, while we were off the air, Joe Budden put out How to Make a Murderer Part 1, which he dissed Drake and had a little slice of little, well, not subliminal, but a small line from Meek Mill, basically. And basically, he was just going at Drake for the fact that he felt that Drake called him out on 4 p.m. in Calabasas, which I didn't even think he did. I didn't even know it was a Diddy diss until someone mentioned it. I listened to it again. I'm like, oh, okay. I hear the Diddy subliminals, but I don't really hear the Joe Budden personals.
The other one was like, I have the old heads trying to check me.
Yeah.
The Diddy album.
Exactly, yeah. So I got that.
Yeah.
And then this week he comes out with Wake, basically discussing how Drake stole from The Weeknd in terms of The Weeknd giving him some of his songs to do on Take Care, how he stole music from Party Next Door, which is why Party Next Door has to come out with an album, and how he stole music from Isle of Makona, which is why he got dropped from the label. So he's making those accusations, basically. So when you hear about all of this, Ryan, what is your take on Budden's thought process with this whole instigation of a beef, basically, with Drake?
I mean, from the outside looking in, it just seems like somebody who's not as relevant as he used to be, trying to be relevant again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, trying to have his name in the headlines, have his name in the blogs, pub his podcast.
Yeah.
I know he has a big hip hop podcast that he's trying to get out there. So
Yeah.
I think Budden is playing the role of like the troll, quote unquote, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like taking it back to basketball, like, you know, kind of like the old heads that sit on the sideline and watch the game now, like, oh, it's not as physical as it used to be. Oh, if I was checking Steph Curry, he wouldn't have been doing.
Exactly.
He wouldn't have been doing all that.
Exactly.
Steph Curry wouldn't. No, that wouldn't have been going out in my day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but they can do that because they're on the sideline. They're not in the game anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Shout out to Chris Jackson. Yo, he agrees.
I kind of get that kind of vibe from it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like he's making himself relevant because obviously we're talking about it again.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, do I think that Joe Budden is just like some kind of Drake hater, like in his heart? Like I think he respects Drake, but I think at the same time he's doing what he has to do, you know, to get the pub.
Exactly.
And definitely just, I don't know, just going at him, trying to bring it back to the old hip hop days when artists were going at each other, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny you say where you make the point about him not hating him, but just trying to check him or whatever. Because he actually did put out an Instagram post either yesterday or the day before, basically saying, you know, I still got. I can't remember exactly what he said word for word, but he's basically saying I still got respect for you, but somewhere along the line you lost your humility, so I'm just bringing you back down to earth, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
My take on this, you know, inciting beef or whatever is I feel like Buddy is trying to regain some sort of relevance because you notice he's been doing that for the last few years. Like he's been on seasons of Love and Hip Hop, which is god awful. He's done the podcast, which I'm not mad at, you know, which is cool because podcasting is a thing nowadays.
Sure.
He's had some relevancy with Slaughterhouse and what have you, which is pretty cool. But like, I feel like you don't need to start a beef with Drake. Like, if you don't feel like you need to. Like, I listened to the podcast in which he was dissecting the 4 p.m. in Calabasas song, and he did make a few points. Like, there was one line where Drake said, "Jealous one's envy," and he thought that as an acronym for Joe, because jealous, you know, and one's an envy, whatever. But
that's kind of a reach.
It's a bit of a reach. It's a bit of a reach, right?
But you know, it's interesting. It's a talking point, and that's his podcast.
Yeah,
like, he needs to make it interesting.
Exactly. Sure. And you know what? When it comes to rappers, I feel like rappers can be a little ultra sensitive at times because it reminds me way back like 20 years ago when Tupac started beef with Nas because he thought Nas dissed him on a song called The Message, which is on his It Was Written album. And Nas said in the opening line, "Fake thug, no love, you get the slug, see before gusto." So I guess because Tupac says, you know, thug life in all of his songs, he probably thought that as a shot at him, which is kind of loose.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I do remember the fact that Tupac did get shot like 2 years before that came out. Yeah. So maybe he was thinking back to that. He's like, oh, he must be my enemy as well. So I guess he could be thinking about that. But again, it's still kind of reach because there's so many rappers who call themselves thugs or whatever. So going back to Joe Budden, it's like, unless if Drake says something direct about you, may not be your name, but he says something direct about you like he did with Diddy, like ha 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 ha, whatever, then you can make the assumption. But until then, just sit back and relax.
And Drake said it best. I think it was in that same song. He said like, in most situations, I'm the bigger artist. I got to play it smarter or something like that. So that's kind of like, that is kind of like addressing everybody. Like, look, unless you're on my level, like I'm not addressing you. Like, like you don't deserve to have me give you that kind of pub kind of thing. So of course him doing that, there's going to be the people on the sideline like, he's not as good as I used to be. I can check
exactly.
So that's just part of the game. That's just part of the game, man.
I think personally Drake should just ignore it.
Oh, for sure.
I think he should ignore it.
It's not even worth. It's not worth it. You know what I mean?
I mean, he could have even ignored Meek Mill last year. But he ripped into Meek Mill, and I loved it because I hate Meek Mill.
Exactly. You could have ignored Meek Mill, but I think the Meek Mill situation was a better look to get involved in that because the Meek Mill just put out an album, and his album was actually charting. So Meek Mill was super relevant. And Meek Mill was known in the game as like one of the
one of the more popular artists.
one of the more popular street rappers in the game, quote unquote street rapper. You know what I mean? So I mean now he's kind of been exposed. So like I don't know how hard people think he is anymore. But before that whole situation, like he was like more one of the more quote unquote street rappers. So for Drake to just rip him like that, it kind of Drake gained something off of that.
Oh yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did.
What does he gain for roasting Joe Budden? Like,
you're not gonna get a whole lot.
Exactly.
Like he might get some street cred from the older heads, but he doesn't really need it. Yeah. He's good.
And when you ask me the opinion on that, have I listened to Joe Budden's 2 tracks? No.
Fair enough.
So that gives you enough of an opinion on like if Joe is actually like gaining some ground in this situation.
Like the irony is before you got here, actually, I was playing one of the Joe records.
I heard that.
I think you came in just at the very end.
I tried to actually listen in real quick just in case you'd ask me about it. I was like,
move it here to it. Yeah. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen at home, what do you guys think? Hit me up on Twitter at DM_cool_radio, and let me know what your thoughts are.